You have to come to the realization that there is no separation between you and your experience of reality. There is no external, internal. From our perspective, of course, we feel I am different from you, I'm different from my environment around me. But you have to understand that all reality is a story that you are telling yourself and about the world around you. And whatever you believe that story to be is the story that you will experience. That's why in the Bible it said that by Jesus, the faith of a mustard seed has the ability to move a mountain, right? Now, I'm no Christian, nor am I a religious person, nor do I believe the Bible is historically accurate or factually true. But I do believe that throughout the ages, different cultures and different peoples have realized the truth about the nature of our reality and have tried to communicate these truths through different characters and different stories. And so the point is, if you can believe it to be true, that will be true in your experience. Belief can be, however, a difficult thing to manipulate. The mind is a very powerful tool, but like the world's most powerful tools, it is not easy to control. It takes a lot of practice, takes a lot of understanding. Think about the most powerful computers, machines. They require a lot of skill in order to manipulate. Well, your mind is the most powerful tool in reality. And so you might say, oh, so you're saying if I could just believe that I am a wealthy person living in a mansion, that would be my experience of reality? Yeah, that's exactly what would materialize in your physical world. However, you and I both understand how hard it would be to actually believe that. When you take a look at your current circumstances, when you take a look at who you are, where you live, the people around you, you have all this information and decades of life experience contradicting this new narrative that you would wish to believe. And I'm also not saying that it would magically materialize instantaneously. There are some who would suggest that that is actually what could be achieved, and this is what would be described as a miracle as a result of having such a high degree of faith. It is the kind of faith, the kind of delusion that the Bible talks about entering into when you assume the mind of a child. Think about how a child believes in things like the tooth fairy, like Santa Claus and things of that nature. If you could believe with the same level of conviction that that is your reality, that you are a wealthy person, living the life of a wealthy person, well, that would materialize. If you could hold to that belief consistently and with the conviction of a child, yes, that would materialize in your world. And you would live your life with the expectation that that is the experience that you will have. This is why it is hard for most people to manifest anything, because it is so difficult to do that. Because you have all of this contradicting information that your mind has been receiving and believing for many, many years. And so one of the biggest obstacles to stepping into your preferred reality, your desired reality, is the fact that you continue to identify with the character of yourself from your current reality or your previous frequency. You continue to interact with reality from that perspective. Let me make this simple. Let's say that you see yourself as the villain. You've always been the villain. If you wish to experience a reality where you are the hero, well, then you must step in to the identity of being the hero. You must assume that frequency. You have to see the world through the eyes of you're the hero. But not just that, you have to see the world from the perspective that the world sees you as the hero. Very difficult to do. Because if you have been vibrating or living life from the point of view of the villain, then you have crafted a reality that sees you as the villain. And so when you try to transition into the frequency of the hero, well, because you don't have the conviction of a child, you don't have that strong of faith, you don't have that strong of a, like a delusional belief, a delusional faith, let's call it, although it's not delusion. This is just how the world works. And this is why you see this kind of language in the Quran, in the Bible, and all the various writings and teachings of mystics and philosophers, from more modern people like Alan Watts to people going back thousands of years ago like the Buddha. You see this importance placed on having the faith of a child. This is not easy to do, and it becomes more difficult the older you get, because you get more and more embedded in the external. You get more and more embedded in a materialistic view of the world. You become more convinced that things just are the way that they are as you get older. Anyway, you might not have the faith and belief as a child, but your faith and belief, it is a muscle that will get stronger and stronger with time. And so you believe it enough to start the process, to start taking the steps in the right direction. Of course, what does that look like? Being aware of the thoughts that you're entertaining, the emotions that you are allowing yourself to dwell within, and the actions that you're taking. Are you taking actions that are in alignment with the new identity, the new reality, the new frequency that you wish to live life from? So you're doing that. However, your external reality, there's a lag. It's not going to change overnight. You're still going to experience reality, or a reality that sees you as the villain, even though you have started to step into the frequency of being the hero. Now, the speed at which the physical reality will catch up or reflect your internal state is determined by your conviction and ability to buy into this new frequency. However, as we've said, for most people, it is going to have a bit of a delay. This is essentially the thing that makes or breaks your ability to transition into this new reality, how quickly you transition into this new reality, if at all. And that is if you continue to interact with the external from your previous frequency. So let me paint you a picture, a story. So you've been the villain, and now you want to be the hero. Well, somebody is going to come and interact with you from the perspective that you are still the villain. What do you do? If you respond to that situation as if you are still the villain, well, you are essentially reaffirming that old reality. You are strengthening it. You are preventing yourself from moving into the new frequency. This is where the whole turning the other cheek kind of mentality really comes into play. This is why you have to forgive people. This is why you have to forgive yourself. You must allow the old you to die. In fact, you need to completely disassociate from that old identity. Here's one way you can think of it. Do you know how when you purchase a video game and you assume a character, like GTA 6 is about to come out, and best believe it, I'm gonna be playing that shit. But GTA 6 is about to come out, right? And in the Grand Theft Auto video game series, you assume different characters. You play the game from the perspective of different characters. Now, you might play the game from the perspective of a 32-year-old drug dealer, right? A 28-year-old D-boy. When you buy the game and turn on the game, you don't have to live through 28 years and, to get to that point. You just hop in the game. You're a 28-year-old drug dealer. Your name is Franklin or whatever they name the character. And you have passed a backstory that is given to you. And you have certain goals and objectives to obtain or to accomplish. You need to see your past self or your current situation in a similar fashion. Today, you woke up and you were given a backstory of your past history. Current mission is to transition into the frequency or the reality you wish to inhabit, and that will require you living in alignment with a certain frequency, maintaining a certain emotional state. It's like, imagine you were put into your body and someone gave you the goal of go and become a millionaire. That's your goal, right? Go and become a millionaire. You're not going to buy into the various stories and experiences and shit that you've had. That's just a story you were given, a backstory for the character. Maybe I'll reframe this in another way. You're you, right? You're you. However, imagine if Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates or Andrew Tate or, it's a different person, a person that you see in a certain way. They switched bodies with you and they have to now assume your identity. As far as the world is concerned, they are who you've been up until now. How long do you think it is before, Andrew Tate, who is now in your body, has amassed a cult following of angry young men? How long before you think Bill Gates, who has now assumed your body, is now assumed your identity, has a $1 billion tech company? Or Jeff Bezos? Do you get where I'm going with this? It's like the idea if you're an incredibly fit person. I know fit people think this all the time. I've thought this many times. If you put me in the body of a fat person who's been overweight their entire life, give me 6 months, he's gonna have a six-pack. Why is that? Because I'm not buying into the stories that he has told himself about himself and the world around him. I'm not buying into the story that it's hard to lose weight. I'm not buying into the story that my genes are working against me. I'm not buying into any of that. I also don't have his emotional baggage. I don't look at food as a thing that is a tool for coping with stress. I just don't see food like that. Now, I've had my demons in the past. I've used alcohol in that way. I've used weed in that way. I've used nicotine in that way. So trust me, if that's you, I'm not saying I'm better than you. That just hasn't been my struggle. And so I don't have that narrative, that story in my mind that is going to prevent me from losing the weight. And we know that's the case because fat people lose weight all the time. It happens. Someone has some kind of major shift in their mind. They step into a new frequency. Maybe it's triggered by some kind of life event. And then the person who's been overweight for 20, 30 years, they lose a bunch of weight and become a completely different person. That's who you need to become in order to step into the reality you wish to experience. You have to become a different person. You don't have what you want because you're not who you need to be. And stepping into the frequency, being conscious of your emotions, That's just half the battle. It's incredibly important, but it's half the battle. The other half of the battle is you need to disassociate from your past identity, from your past frequency. This can be incredibly hard, incredibly difficult. Because even though the world around you isn't evil, you don't have an enemy, your reality isn't angry at you that you're trying to change it, that you're trying to shift frequencies. It's merely a problem of inertia. There's all this energetic momentum that has been going one way in your reality. And now you're trying to change it. Probably complete 180, right? Maybe for some people, they're just trying to tweak things. Man, I really like how all these things are in my life, but there's this one area of my life that I wish were different. But for some people, they're trying to do a complete 180. They're trying to go from seeing themselves as, or experiencing the reality of being an out of shape, broke, unreliable, irresponsible loser, to being a fucking boss. That's a big change. That's a big shift. And so you have all this energy, all this inertia trying to take you in one direction. And now you're trying to turn around and go the other way. Well, that's going to cause a lot of friction. And that friction is going to express itself in the physical reality, the story that is built around your individualized character, your ego, your identity, is going to do things to try and get you back in line, get you back in alignment, because it doesn't want to change. Everything in our reality seeks a state of homeostasis. It seeks to be balanced. This is why things fall over when they're unbalanced. It's because it's trying to find a state of stability. And so when you start acting in a way that is no longer congruent with your present external reality, something needs to give in order for reality to restabilize. Either the world around you must change, everything must change, your entire external reality must change, or you must change. Which one sounds easier? It's easier for you to go back to being the way you were before. The universe, the world, has to do less movement. Now, or at least that's how we will perceive it. That's how it's perceived. It really isn't any more difficult for one to give than the other. It's just that all the power resides in your mind. And it's just so easy for us to give up, give in, to not trust the process. It's a faith issue. That's really what it is. It's not about effort at the end of the day. It's about just trusting the process. And this will come in a lot of forms. People will primarily be the biggest thing. The opinions of others. People will try to remind you of your past. People try to get you to engage in a way that requires you to see yourself in the way that you've been seeing yourself up until now. And in order to engage in that past identity, guess what you have to do? You have to disengage from the new identity you're trying to step into, which is very fragile in the beginning. It's not concrete, it's not cemented, it hasn't planted very deep and firm roots. And so that's the trick of it, guys. The trick of it is not engaging with your past identity. The old man must die. You have to see that character as dead and gone. If you can even get to the state where someone tries to bring up something from your past, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. Now, you might not want to articulate it like that because then people are going to think you're crazy and delusional, right? Imagine if someone came to Kim Kardashian and asked her about her sex tape with Ray J. And if she was like, what are you talking about? That never happened, right? That would be a delusional moment. People would be like, you're crazy. But what she would do is she will really play it down. She'll try to get off the topic. She won't feed a lot of energy into it. She'll try to change the subject. You notice that people who are incredibly powerful manifestors, and all it means to be a manifester is you can get your reality to conform to what you want to be true. That's all it means, right? Donald Trump, he is an incredibly powerful manifester, for example. Now, this is why bad things happen to good people, by the way, and bad people enrich themselves and become very powerful, because your ability to get reality to conform to what you want to be true has nothing to do with morality. It is completely based on conviction. It's completely based on faith. And so observe Donald Trump when he is confronted about something, like the tariff situation, for example. People on the right and the left, economists on the right and the left, and I don't give a fuck about politics, so don't worry, I don't care what side you're on. But people on the right and the left have both been like, hey, this tariff thing is bad for our economy. It's not a good move. He will not acknowledge that. He will not acknowledge that he had anything to do with the insurrection, January 6th. He will not acknowledge anything that he doesn't want to be true is not true in his world. And I don't believe he's just lying. I think he really believes that, because that is how someone with a lot of control over energy and who have a high degree of understanding in regard to how to manipulate reality. This is something that they understand either consciously, meaning they were taught it. Of course, these are the secrets of the world that you will see being taught in the various, shit like the Freemasons and the Illuminati and all this stuff. This is the kind of information they kept, and it's embedded in religions and like Christianity and Islam and all of that, Buddhism. Of course, a lot of that gets corrupted and manipulated for the sake of organizations enriching themselves and all that, which is why the standards change over time in regard to these religions, what is considered moral and not moral. But some people understand this intuitively. And these people are often labeled as narcissists. Now, sometimes they are narcissistic. They do express the character flaws of being a narcissist, but they're also very good at manipulating not just people, but their reality, at least in one way. They're delusional. I mean, when you think about what a narcissist is, they're delusional, but they're delusional oftentimes in an unconscious way that hurts other people. In order to be a master manipulator of your reality, you have to be delusional in a conscious, intentional way, where the desire is improving your life and the lives of others. I would never encourage you to try and use this understanding to hurt people. But you have to also understand that everything is a manifestation. All things are achieved by this. Everything that happens is a manifestation. You are never not manifesting. You are never not sowing seeds. You're never not reaping the seeds that you've sown in the past. It's just that most people are doing this unconsciously. And so the major takeaway I want you to have with this video is you must disassociate from your past identity. The more completely you can do that, the more consistently you can hold to that, the faster you will step into your new world. And all of this stuff is a skill. These are muscles, mental and spiritual muscles that you're training. So don't beat yourself up when you can step back from a situation and realize you kind of fucked up there. Oh, I kind of bought into my past frequency right there. I bought into my past self right there. I strengthened. It's just learning. There are no mistakes once you become conscious and awoken to this understanding. It's just opportunities to learn. For unconscious people, they don't learn. They are mistakes that they continue to repeat over and over again in different ways. But it's the same mistake they keep making over and over again. For us, we are conscious. We are aware that our minds, subconscious and conscious, are actively shaping our reality. And so we look at our experiences a little differently. We evaluate, we know the importance of emotion and energy. And so when you do something, especially something that goes against your intuition or your gut and intuition will become increasingly trustworthy the more consistently you can hold to the frequency that is in alignment with the reality that you are trying to experience or that you would like to experience in the physical, in the 3D. And so as you hold to that new frequency, you will find that your gut becomes more and more consistently accurate. And when you go against your gut and your intuition, you will see, okay, that was a mistake. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to yield some kind of incredibly negative consequence right away, but it's enough for you to learn from. And of course, the problem is when you don't pay attention, you don't learn from it. And you then continue to make more mistakes. You continue to undo the work that you have been doing to move into this new reality. So I hope that helps.